This is part 2 of our 3-part series, Modified Crossbody Bag to Backpack. So, in part 1 we prepared our pattern pieces, we had our interfacing, and we made darts to shape the bag. Now in part 2 we're going to start working on our flap. So take the lining piece of your flap and fold it in half to find the center of it. We're going to adhere our magnetic snap. So place your piece right sides down on your work surface. Take a ruler and mark 1 inch up from the curved edge of your flap and make a mark. At this point is where we're going to place the magnetic snap. Now I know some of you may not have ever installed a magnetic snap before, so I'm going to go slowly so that you can understand what I'm doing here. So I'm now going to mark the area where our prongs will be going through the fabric. So if you have an erasable pen, that would be great, or chalk. Any marking tool can be used. If it's a permanent pen you're using, mark very lightly so that it doesn't print through to the right side. Now take a seam ripper and we're going to use this to make the holes for the prongs to go through. As you can see here, I'm taking my time because these seam rippers can be very sharp and you don't want to make too large of a hole. You want your snap to fit snugly. So take the male part of the snap and push it through from the right side of your fabric as shown in the video. And now we're going to take a 1 inch square piece of Peltex interfacing, or any interfacing or foam that you might have, and you're going to mark the area for the prongs as well on that, and you're going to push, or you push through the prongs directly, or you can use your seam ripper to make the hole like I'm doing. You will place this over the prongs and then you will take your iron and press it a bit so that it will adhere to your fabric if it's an adhesive interfacing. Now here I am turning my prongs inwards. Some people prefer to turn them outwards, but I think it will be better if it's in onto itself so that it wouldn't rub against the fabric too much and cause damage. If you want, after you've done this, you can also put another piece of interfacing over the top, and just to cover everything so you don't have to worry about it rubbing too much over your fabric. Now if you so far you're enjoying this video, please give it a like so that the algorithm will share it with other people so we can increase our little community here. So take the exterior piece of your flap and place it on your work surface right sides up. Then you place the lining piece that you just placed the magnetic snap on, and you place that right sides down on top of that, and you will clip or pin those two pieces together. Now if you're using vinyl like I'm using for the exterior, do not pin, because this will put holes in your vinyl, and we don't want that. So you will clip instead. If you're using woven fabric such as cotton, then you can use your pins. Now take your ruler and you're going to mark a 5 inch opening at the straight edge of your flap piece. This will be where you will turn your flap right sides out. Now do not sew over that area. You will sew around the rest of the flap using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm making sure that everything is clipped together nicely and is lined up properly, and I will take this to my sewing machine and I will sew around the area that I'm illustrating here. I'm now at the sewing machine and Oh, when you're working with vinyl, make sure to use a long stitch length. I think here I'm using about a 4mm stitch length, or you can use a 3mm stitch length, depending on how your machine works. So I'm sewing along here nicely, don't seem to be having much trouble. Oh, and a tip: if you're sewing on the vinyl part of your fabric, then you can use a bit of petroleum jelly or some kind of grease or a touch of oil and just rub it over the area where you're going to sew on the vinyl to help the presser foot to glide smoothly. If you don't have a Teflon foot or you're not using a walking foot, here I'm using the regular sewing machine foot, so I'm going to use a bit of petroleum jelly to help me along the way. And I figured this out as I was sewing, because at some point I was having some difficulty and that idea popped into my mind, so I did that and it worked. At this stage I'm not using any grease or anything there because I'm sewing on the cotton section. So you've completed sewing. Now you're going to trim around using a pinking shears if you have one. If you don't have one, that's fine. At the curved points on your flap, you can just make some notches, like just cutting some slits along, making sure not to cut into your thread, the stitching that you just did. And you go around. This will help it to turn and to set properly when you turn the bag right sides out. Do not cut where the opening is, because you need that ear to fold inwards to close that opening. So here I'm going to turn my bag right sides out. Make sure you get into all the corners and poke everything. Make sure everything is smoothly and your flap is shaped exactly how it's supposed to. If you enjoy my videos and you would like to check out some more of my other videos, there will be links in the description and in the cards. You can go onto my channel and check those out. And please subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future posts and that you can see all the parts of this series to complete your bag. So make sure take your time and roll out the corners. As you can see, follow along as I'm doing here with my fingers, just rolling the corners, getting everything shaped nicely. And there you have your flap with your magnetic snap, part of your magnetic snap attached. I'm using a stick. Make sure that it's not sharp, to just go around in the corners and make sure everything is, smoothed properly. So this is looking quite nice. So you fold the opening inwards at 1/4 inch and you will use your clips or your pin and to hold these closed. Now take your flap to your sewing machine and you will go around the sides. You will top stitch. You will sew around the flap using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I was telling you earlier about using some petroleum jelly or some kind of grease to help your machine to move along, and at this stage is where I was having some trouble, so I did that and it worked nicely. As you can see, my machine is gliding over. I'm not having any trouble going around on my flap piece, and I'm sewing on the vinyl. So that's a neat trick. Stick it in your back pocket and remember to use it when you're working with vinyl. Don't use too much, just along the edge where you're going to be stitching. So we've completed our flap and we will now move on to installing the second half of our magnetic snap, and we're using the front exterior piece, and we'll place a mark down. I'm making the large size of the bag, so I'm placing my mark 3 inches down from the top edge. If you're making the small one, you will place it at 1 3/8 down from the top edge, and you will repeat the process same as we did with the flap. You will now use the female section of your magnetic snap and place that in there. take a piece of Peltex or foam or fleece, whatever you have, and you repeat the process again here. I'm just going to do it quickly, so just as a reminder in case if you forgot or you don't want to go back or you don't remember. So just follow along the video. I'm going to speed it up here so that you can get that done. Once you've installed the other section of your magnetic snap, we will continue by attaching the flap to the exterior back of your bag. So let's recap what we've done so far. We've cut out our pieces, we've shaped our bag, we've adhered the closure, the magnetic snap closure, we made our flap, and stay tuned for part 3 where we will assemble our bag, and then we're going to add the straps to make it our backpack, to finish our backpack.